Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Today on JW Designs, we're going to be building a desk out of white oak. Big shout out to a friend of mine, Dave Appleton, for passing this white oak my way. Turns out gorgeous. Not only white oak, but also walnut, a set of antique legs that we found at an antique shop. Remember, they go together. Those were in my shop tour video that I would encourage you to check that out. And I just want to say a great big thanks to each of you for helping make JW Designs launch on YouTube a huge success. Tell your friends about it, like the video, share it, all that stuff. You guys know what to do. Let's get into this build. A friend of mine gave me this white oak, as I mentioned in the intro. It's beautiful stuff. It's been in his barn for a long time. So right now I'm taking some time to make sure that I get the layout correct. I'm trying to make sure that the boards are fairly even on the ends, making sure that I have the dominoes. I think I went about 3.5 inches from the ends starting out, and then from that 3.5 went every foot as I'm marking these boards. When you lay out dominoes or biscuits, you want to make sure that you put a mark on both boards, and then with the center line on the tool, whether it's a biscuit joiner or a domino joiner, you can line that up. Festool makes this domino joiner, and it uses these dominoes. So you'll take these boards after you've set everything up. Right here you can see that I'm drawing things out so that when I move these boards, I know where they're going to go back to. This is the Festool domino joiner that I mentioned. This is a great tool. It's a big investment for sure. Festool makes a great tool. It's an expensive tool, highly accurate. So right here you can see that I'm lining everything up, making sure that the domino is going to be in the middle of the board. This tool is fairly adjustable. I mean, very adjustable, really. It's adjustable both in depth, several ways. After drilling those holes for the dominoes, otherwise known as a mortise and tenon joint, set up the clamps, put the boards up, get everything lined up, and now it is time for glue. This was one of my favorite times for a build, especially a table or a panel, when you've got everything ready to go. Put the glue in, dominoes in, and then you have the joy of laying those things down after you've spread the glue and putting everything together. The music that you hear is from my brother. This is a great song of his, Winds of Winfield, and obviously a swimming celebration. You love that shimmy. It was a bit of a challenge to put these boards together. They do have some bow in them. I was able to get them straight with the 8-inch Grizzly joiner, but man, you can see the bow on this last board. And I just took some time to make sure that I did it little by little and was able to get everything clamped tightly together. These are Bessie parallel clamps. They're a great tool, work really well. Very strong clamp, and you're able to get those put together well. Now we move on to sanding, and this was a lot of work. Took a lot of time. I'm using a DeWalt orbital sander, a random orbital sander. Right here you can see that I'm working on the edge of this. This is where the debarker, yeah, that's how it is. It's where it took the bark off and left some lines in the live edge. And so I was able to take a chisel to that and get that taken care of. Now the belt sander comes out, and we're going to be working on different grits. I think we start with somewhere around 80. Then you can see my son-in-law, Jeremy Hoppert, right here helping me out. Right now we're taking the chisel to the glue lines on the joints and trying to get as much of that glue out as we possibly can. After the cleanup on the boards, now it's time to take those antique legs that we found at an antique store south of us and work with those. They had threads on them. I think they were from an English piece of some kind. So I was able to get those wooden screws off of there so that they're going to lay flat on the piece, and now this is just really taking some time on layout to make sure that everything's set up correctly, looking at different screw sizes to make sure that I don't go through the top. If you guys are anything like me when it comes to a build, I am terrified that I'm going to go through the top of something. In fact, I helped with a build one time where we were putting in cabinets, put the counter on, took my time, measured, guess what? I went through the top with a screw on that countertop. Just made me sick. So I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I don't do that here. Right here, I'm just taking some time to bore into that leg. And now it's time to take the ends off and get everything nice and straight. I generally just use a straight edge, a piece of plywood or something. And I know that with that circular saw, I'm going to be able to get that nice and straight. Now, the legs go on. I've laid it all out using those clamps to make sure that we're nice and tight to the table. Using a Forstner bit so that I can go down far enough so that this 4-inch or 3.5-inch screw gets plenty of bite. Now it's time for the apron boards. All legs have been attached. We're using walnut aprons for this build. White oak top, walnut aprons, and able to get that taken care of, cut to length. And now we're going to make a couple more final adjustments on the cuts so that the aprons are all the same size. We want those to be about 1.5 inches wide by 2 3/4 inches tall. Taking care of the long apron boards, cutting those to 2 3/4 inches. Now it's the next one. I've had this table saw for a few years and it's done a really good job. One of the best things that I did for it was get a ripping blade, and that was tremendous. My son was able to come in and help me. We have 4 children. My oldest son, Eric, jumped in to help me lift this table. This thing is ridiculously heavy. That white oak is 2 inches thick, and the aprons and legs obviously add to that weight. So it's back and forth to make sure that I get this thing correct. These legs are hand carved, and as such, the ears on them, I'm calling them the ears, they're different widths. So I had to make spacers out of that walnut to make sure that the aprons were square to one another. Otherwise, it would have been angled and would have been a different width. Here you see my grandkids jumping in and out. Now taking time to think about how those spacers are going to work out, having some great conversation here with family, getting the Forstner bit out once again and boring some holes, getting everything clean. And now we're going to attach that apron to the table. I attached the apron to the table, and then I also attached that to the ears of the leg. As you'll see here in a little while, we wedged those aprons in with a piece cut with 245s. That turned out really good. So now with one apron on, putting on the second. It took some time to get these aprons in the right place. I wanted to make sure that everything was just right with this. This is my desk that I'll be using for my office space in the loft. And as such, I'm going to be sitting at that. We'll also be using that as a conference table. These legs all have wheels, original wheels that were on them, and I'll be adjusting the base of them. You'll see in the final product what we ended up doing with the base of these legs so that it's set at the right height. It was critical to make sure that you could sit comfortably at this table and your knees weren't bumping into the aprons. Now getting that second apron attached to the table. I must have wanted to run a stair lap or something. I'm not quite sure. I was probably checking the battery on the camera to make sure that it was good. You guys may know or may not know, you can only go about 30 minutes, at least on the camera that I have, so I have to check it periodically to make sure that I had not run out of time. Now looking at this next one, this end apron board, going to be taking some time to make sure that my measurements are correct. And again, going to have to make a spacer. You can kind of see that next to the ear on that leg. I was able to use that Milwaukee jigsaw. That's something that I got probably about a year or two ago. And it's a little different format than most jigsaws. I really like the way it's set up. It's easy to use, plenty powerful, variable speed, great lighting for it, and it just does a great job. Obviously using the M18 line on that. And then also have drill and impact with the M18, and I have an M12 impact that I really enjoy using. That is surprisingly strong. I picked up a long 1/8 inch drill bit to make sure that I was able to access the holes in the right places on not only the legs but also the aprons. Here you can see how I set this up so that this piece wedges in the corner, and I'll be taking the drill and starting a hole there, a pilot hole for the screw. Got that in. That's that M12 impact that I was telling you about right there. It does a great job. It's really strong. And then I go into the leg. Guys, that's part 1. Thank you for watching.